You already know that FE series is a cheaper flagship from Samsung, so it is closer to the S24 spec-wise, but size-wise, it is close to A55. The chipset is an underclocked version of S24's Exynos 2400, but is more powerful than the one in the A55. We'll put that into test later in the review. S24 FE and A55 weight almost the same. The S24 FE is virtually identical in size to A55. I can even fit the case of A55 on the S24 FE. If you look at the display, the bezels are smaller to A55, but bigger than the S24. All three have a similar profile on the back, with 3 cameras. However, the A series and A55 have a non-so-useful macro lens and are just there to add optics to the phone, while the S24 and S24 FE have a proper telephoto lens. This is awesome because even more expensive options in the market, like the iPhone 16 and Pixel 9, do not provide that option. What they all have in common is the aluminum frame and front and back glass. There is a slight difference though. A55 is IP67, while the other two are IP68, which means they can withstand water jets too. There's something awesome that A55 has and the other two do not, and that's the micro SD card. This is crucial for many who want to save money and can be a potential deal breaker. Display is another reason folks consider buying a flagship. Of course, the best screen is for S24 since it has a 416 pixel per inch density, a higher max brightness, and LTPO, which means the refresh rate is variable, which helps with the battery life. Surprisingly, A55 has a higher pixel density than S24 FE, but the max brightness is much lower than S24 FE. That said, I didn't have any problem with either screen in bright sunlight. They all are plenty bright for most use cases. The question for all of you is also how the battery life, camera, and performance compare, and I will test that truly. I first charged all of them to 100% using the charger I got from Ugreen. Links in the description below. All three have a 25-watt charger, which is relatively slow. Also, the S24 and S24 FE has 15 watts wireless charging. You should get a MagSafe case though, and then you can attach a wireless charger, which I link the ones I'm using in the description. I charged all of them to 100% before starting the battery test. All phones are set to the same 700 nits brightness using the lux meter. Starting with the battery life, I connected all of them to 4G to run YouTube on 720 for an hour first. I decided to do a 4G test because it is more widely available. The A55 battery is the largest, with a 5000 mAh battery. Then there's a 4700 mAh battery for S24 FE and an advertised 4000 mAh battery for S24, but the capacity is slightly lower. S24 has the most powerful chipset, so it makes sense to drain the battery faster. The S24 FE has the second most powerful chipset, which is Exynos 2400E, and is an underclocked version of Exynos 2400 on S24. Then A55 has Exynos 1480, which is the mid-range version of Exynos. I also used the app that I wrote to monitor the phone's temperature and battery life. The app hasn't been published yet, and I'm sorry about that. By the end of 1 hour and 20 minutes of playing YouTube, the S24 had 88% battery left, the S24 FE had 90% battery left, and the A55 had 89% battery left. Temperature-wise, the S24 got to 31.8 degrees Celsius, the S24 FE got the same, and the A55 got to 31 degrees Celsius. For the second part of the battery test, I recorded a 20 minutes video using the front camera. All videos were taken at 4K at 30 frames per second, and A55 cannot take 60 frames per second with the front camera. By the end of this part of the test, S24 had 79% battery left, S24 FE had 84% battery left, and A55 had 82% battery left. Temperature-wise, S24 got 40 degrees, S24 FE got 37.2, and A55 got 34.2. It is worth mentioning that S24 has a smaller body, and naturally, it gets hotter since no amount of vapor chamber can negate the laws of thermodynamics. For the next part, I'm going outdoors to take pictures and videos. On paper, the primary sensor for S24 and S24 FE is ISOCELL GN3 from Samsung, while for A55, it is Sony IMX906. However, on paper, they have the same characteristics, which is that they are 50 megapixel f1.8 lenses. The pictures you see right now are taken with 50 megapixel lens using 50 megapixel mode with the main lens. The image on A55 is darker than the other two, but I prefer it. On the other hand, the dynamic range is noticeably better on the S24 and S24 FE, but sometimes it is even better on S24 FE than on S24. This shot is visibly better and sharper on S24 FE compared to the other two. I made sure the lenses were clean before shooting it. Maybe there is a software tweak that Samsung applied on the S24 FE. But all in all, from the primary lens, the difference is not huge. Moving to macro lens, I don't think the dedicated lens on A55 is anything but cosmetics. The difference between the shots they made is negligible. The only visible difference is that the colors on S24 and S24 FE are more vibrant, but the colors of the macro lens for A55 are more muted. It applies to almost all colors. For the ultra-wide lens, to me it is obvious that details that S24 and S24 FE are capturing are more even during daylight. And again, the contrast is more on the A55 and the colors are less vibrant and the image is also darker. As I said, the main difference between A series and the S series is that the lack of telephoto lens, and the digital crop on A55 can't keep with the optical one on S24 and S24 FE. Maybe if you are watching the image on a smaller screen and you don't zoom anything more than 3 times, the difference does not show itself as much, but it is there and details and sharpness are lacking on the A55 zoom photos. The difference is visible, especially if you zoom in more than 10 times. A55 cannot zoom as far as S24 and S24 FE, which can be problematic if you want to take shots of a bird. I'm doing a proper camera comparison later, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. In terms of colors, at least in this picture, I feel they are all created a very similar tone with the main lens. Selfie is where S24 does the best job, followed by S24 FE and then A55. It is one of the places where Samsung cut costs and saved money by putting a more subpar lens on the front camera for the A55 and 10 megapixel instead of 12 megapixel on the S24 FE compared to the S24. The A55 selfie camera is not bad by any measure, but it lacks the details and sharpness the series offer. For the video on the ultra-wide lens, you can see that the dynamic range is not as good on A55 as on the other two. Moving to the primary lens, the Sony lens on the A55 is softer than the S24 and S24 FE, but all create a nice image. And of course, the main difference shows itself when zoom first 3 times into the subject. Then when we expanded the zoom to 10 times, where the A55 video is almost unusable, both S24 and S24 FE created a rather appealing video without too much noise and with an acceptable result. I also don't notice much difference between S24 and S24 FE here. Now let's move to benchmarks and performance. I'm going to run 2 benchmarks. The first one is the AnTuTu test. In the AnTuTu test, the S24 FE scored better than S24, most likely because it did not throttle as fast as the S24. A more fair comparison would be between the S24 FE and the S24 Plus. This result can vary. For example, the last time I ran the same test, S24 got 100K more than S24 FE. The A55 did not get a good result, and even though the Exynos 1480 has nice thermals, it is also relatively weak. The second benchmark is more geared towards gaming and GPU performance. It is called the 3D Mark stress test. It involves about 20 loops of the same thing, putting the phone under stress. Here, the S24 and S24 FE are going to lose more battery compared to A55 because they simply have more raw power. Surprisingly again, S24 FE got a better score here too. So here is my theory. Because S24 is getting an average score like a normal one, but S24 FE is getting an exceptionally high score, even more than S24 Snapdragon. I think I just won the silicon lottery here. We know Exynos chipsets have a widely different yields. In fact, the S24 in this video differs from the one that I used in my early videos, because I thought maybe the first one was broken. Sometimes you got a better chipset than an average one, and I think that's the case here because my score on S24 FE is better than other YouTubers. It is a theory, I can't confirm it without buying another S24 FE. Let me know what you think in the comments. By the end of the all tests I've done, the S24 had 39% battery left, the S24 FE had 50%, and A55 had 60%. Again, it is essential to note that for one, the S24 has a smaller battery capacity. Also, both S24 and S24 FE have a higher performance, which puts them in a disadvantage because their chipset is more power hungry during the benchmarks. All 3 phones run the same Android with One UI on top. The software update situation differs. The S24 and S24 FE got 7 years of OS updates, while the A55 gets only 4 years. The A55 does not get some of the features you can find on S24 and S24 FE, like the AI ones, but they all get circle to search. Apart from that, some camera features are missing on the A55, namely, you cannot shoot at 8K, whereas S24 and S24 FE have an 8K option. You don't have 120 frames per second as you do on S24 and S24 FE, and there is no video pro mode. I will also do a camera comparison for S24 FE, which you can watch next. Thanks for tuning into Tecmo, and I will see you in the next one.